Good morning. Happy Monday. Jackie Broman here. I do join Jackie at 10 o'clock on Monday mornings. And today the topic is about investing in property by yourself as a solo investor. And the property market at the moment is going a little bit nuts. And I've noticed in my own feed that there's quite a few people spruiking education things about investing and buying in property at the moment as a form of wealth creation. And that's all good and well. But what I wanted to talk through today was a few things to bear in mind before you jump into the property market if you're going to start investing, particularly if you're investing by yourself, rather than as a couple or as with your siblings or with some friends or something like that, depending on, there are multiple ways you can invest, I suppose, and multiple people you can invest with. But if you are investing in property by yourself as an investment rather than something to live in, a few things to think about. And to get legal advice as well as advice from an accountant before you jump straight in. Because getting the structure right before you jump into investment can be really important for longer term, both from a tax perspective and a succession perspective. So last week I actually did a short video on different business structures. This is also a little bit relevant from the perspective of investing structures as well. So rather than investing in your own name, which could put your investments at risk, you might want to look at investing through another entity, like starting a family trust, for example. Again, subject to getting advice from an accountant and a solicitor about your situation, but it can be a really good tool which helps not only protecting your asset, but also can help succession as well. You need to weigh up those objectives with tax objectives. Sometimes it's better to invest in your own name from a tax perspective, but other times not. It's certainly best to have your principal place of residence in your own name, if you can, and if it's not a protection risk for that. But for other investments, certainly start looking at other entities before you jump in and start investing in the property market. So those three things that I touched on are really the objectives you need to think about before investing. So am I trying to minimize paying tax? And that can be income tax on the investment, it can be capital gains tax, it can be land tax, it can be stamp duty. So all these taxes you need to think about. Succession is another objective. So if succession is more important to you than tax, there are pros and cons of a lot of different structures. If you are, for example, in a relationship, married or de facto, and you are wanting everything to go to your partner when you pass away, investing in your own name is probably not the best way to go because it adds a whole lot of issues if something does happen to you and you want to pass them on. However, if you looked at other ways of owning the property at that time, such as putting it into a trust can then transfer, sometimes a little bit easier without a whole lot of administration to whom you want those investments to go to. And the other objective I briefly touched on before was protection as well. So if you are exposed in any way to litigation, to being sued, having assets in your own name is not a great solution because they can be targeted for actions against you, for if you had bankruptcy proceedings commenced against you, assets can be called in and you can lose those investments. So again, looking at a different entity, if that's your objective to protect those assets, jumping in and looking at a trust or another entity again is another good solution. So weighing up those objectives before you jump into the property market is really important. So those things are really relevant to think about before you jump into investing in real estate by yourself. For those people who've been jumping in and out, the reason I'm talking about this is because the property market is booming a bit, and there are quite a few people out there talking and trying to convince people to jump into the property market as an investment tool. And then the final thing I briefly wanted to touch on as well was raising funds to buy your investment. And whether you've got enough equity that you're going to use from something else to jump in with your as a deposit, for example, or whether you've got the funds yourself and whether you've got enough income to service the investment. So if you are relying on equity in another property, for example, a property that is jointly owned with someone else, that's going to mean that the other person is likely to have to go guarantor on your loan. The other thing can be if you are assessed as not having quite enough income to service your loan on the investment property by yourself, even if you've got a tenant in, you may need a guarantor. So whether it's a partner or parents even, to get you into a loan. And make sure before you jump into investing that you actually calculate all the costs involved. So stamp duty, costs of establishing a loan, costs of doing the transfers and the conveyancing into your name in the first place. So make sure you take all of that into account and not just the property value. So there you go, a few things to think about before jumping in and investing in the property market in your own name by yourself, or some of it's relevant for investing generally at all. Now, I do this at 10 o'clock on most Mondays. I try and be consistent as possible. If there are any topics that you want me to cover, by all means, please reach out, either direct message through this Facebook page, or you can email. If you jump on our website, all our personal emails are available there on the Meet the Team tab. All these videos do get saved onto the Facebook page as well. So we've got over 100 on the videos tab on our Facebook page, if you want to go back and look through a whole lot of topics. If this or any of the other videos are relevant for anyone you know, please tag their name in the comments for them to find the video. Or if it's private, you can of course share it with them via Messenger, via direct message. So those are all the ways to get in touch. Otherwise, I hope you have a really great week, and I'll come back again with another topic next week. See you then.